Yeah, I think overall, I think it's just important, especially in times like this when there are a lot of macro drivers or stylistic drivers in the market, just to focus on a couple of fundamental things, which is one, earnings growth, and two, valuations and the general liquidity environment that helps drive the valuations along with the earnings growth. And I think when you look at these fundamentals and you stretch it over a longer period of time, I think we're actually in a pretty good buying spot. I think it could be painful. It could be bumpy in the next few months. But these trends, I think, from a short-term standpoint, are difficult to read. But from a long-term perspective, when you look at a lot of the technology shares in China, can they deliver growth? Yes. Are they in a conducive monetary environment for equities performing? Yes. Are there some regulatory uncertainties in the near term that could potentially lead actually to a better longer term? Yes. So I think just looking away from the day-to-day movements and the volatility, the style rotations, a lot of these buzzwords in the market, we actually see some pretty decent value for some really good growth stocks.
Okay, and it does make me wonder, though, about the regulatory overhang. I mean, Emily was just talking there about a lot of chatter today with Jack Ma appearing in Ali Day. Do you think some of the regulatory risk perhaps has been overdone in terms of the price action we're seeing in these big names?
Yeah, I think whether it's the regulatory risk or whether it's the way the market is looking at cyclicality, growth versus value, I think a lot of the buzzwords we're hearing in the market right now, it does feel like it's overdone because I think when we look at the overall valuations of our universe, stocks like Alibaba actually stand out pretty well, which is quite unusual, given the kind of run it's had since its IPO. Because I think from a regulatory standpoint, I think it's important just to keep in mind what the objectives of the regulation are, which are number one, to create a proper environment for innovation. So you don't have kind of large players squeezing out all of the smaller players. And then two, just an environment in which excessive risks or risk taking is moderated. And I think we saw that through the fintech. So I think with having these two things in mind and not thinking about it in terms of the politics of, well, we need to show who's in charge, et cetera, which I don't think is a primary driver for the valuations and for the regulation. It's actually not a bad setup, I think, if you're willing to look past the current environment and the headlines and to look, let's say, 2 or 3 years forward.